Chapter. Work-related. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the second generation of the Trench, he changed to the Ruanfan script, through the book, author. Marujian Introduction. When Wei Lizho woke up, he found that he was actually a dog-licking male partner in an F4 school Danmei novel. In the novel, Wei Lizho, the licking dog obsessed with the protagonist, has nothing left until the end. The Wei family property was divided up by F4, and even his life was lost because of the protagonist. Wei Lizho after awakening. Wouldn't it be nice to be a second generation? If a good person doesn't do it, why do you have to be a dog? Wei Lizho kicked over his dog. Licking script. When Wei Lizho first met the protagonist Shou and his brother Yuiqing were being made things difficult by a group of dudes. According to the original plot, Wei Lizho was supposed to stand up for the protagonist Shou, but this time he saved the protagonist Shou's cannon fodder brother Yuiqing. Because Yuiqing helped Wei's father when Wei's family went bankrupt in the original plot. Wei Lizho always thought that he saved a poor little boy, so he protected Yuiqing like an old hen all day long, worried that Yuiqing would be bullied by the protagonist Shou and F4. But he didn't know that Yuiqing was not only able to fight on par with the F4 families in the later stage of the original text, but also, poor little, he had just been reborn from the previous life. Tips for reading this article. 1. Mutual love is the main attack, the second generation attack of Dobiheo 2. Throwing flowers and bricks is acceptable, but no personal attack on anyone. 3. The copy has been screenshotted in 6.5. 4. Decline to copy empty words, it is recommended to report directly to Jinjiang 5. Do not mention other articles in the comment area, and please do not mention this article in the comment area of other articles. Respect each other. Content tags. Aristocratic family Chuanshu Shuangwen campus search keywords. Protagonist. Wei Lizho, Yuiqing supporting role. Received the real young master and his own brother hold a fine script. Others. 1. Sentence introduction. After refusing to be a spare tire, but instead took the Ruanfan script. Conception. Even if you are trapped in a ravine, you must look up to thousands of stars. Chapter 1. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the early morning, there are dense trees in the quiet and elegant villa area, and a few crisp and sweet birdsong can be heard from time to time. Sunlight streams in through the windows and onto the villa's smooth marble tiled floors. Feeling the glare of the sun on his face, Wei Lizho, who was still sleeping on the bed, couldn't help but frown. Knock button, there was a sudden knock on the door. Wei Lizho, get up quickly, don't be late on the first day of transfer report. Wei Lizho's family moved from Yuqing to Haiqing recently. Wei Lizho, who was awakened by the knock on the door, opened his eyes in a daze. Hearing the urging from his mother Chao Yaching outside the door, his face immediately showed obvious resistance. Mom, I'm not feeling well, and I want to take a day off, is that okay? Wei Lizho pinched his nose and throat, pretending to be weak, and shouted out the door. Wei Lizho. 30.6 Strategies, procrastination is the best strategy. What do you think? Chao Yaching asked in a gentle voice when she heard her son Wei Lizho's words outside the door. Cough cough cough. Wei Lizho pretended to cough a few times. I think it's okay. Chao Yi twitched the corners of her mouth with a clear smile. Wei Lizho, this bastard, grew up to be 1.8 meters tall for nothing, and he was as naive as a primary school student in his actions. Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and report to the school immediately after breakfast. Chao Yaching ordered directly. Hearing her mother's tough tone, Wei Lizho realized that he had to report today, and instantly howled in pain and sorrow. He rubbed his handsome face with sharp features, and after he woke up a bit, he lazily got off the bed, dragged a pair of long legs, and walked into the bathroom in the room to wash. And Chao Yaching, who was outside the door, turned around and went downstairs after hearing Wei Lizho getting up. As she went downstairs, she was still thinking about why Wei Lizho suddenly resisted going to the new school to report. Since yesterday, I have been clamoring that I don't want to go to Jiahai International School and want to go to another school. Naturally, Chao Yaqing did not agree to his whim. After all, Jiahai International School is the best high-end private school in Haicheng. Most of the students in this school come from rich and powerful families, so the faculty is also at the top level in Haicheng. Chao Yaqing thought that Wei Lizho is now in the first semester of science in his second year of high school, and his academic performance is not good. If he can improve his grades in this famous aristocratic school, it would be great. When Chao Yaqing heard Wei Lizho say that he didn't want to go to this school, he also asked him why. She thought that if Wei Lizho's reason was justified, she might consider his request. It's a pity that Wei Lizho's reason is too absurd. Is it different from Jiahai International School? What a reason! If you want to find an excuse, you have to find a reasonable one. Without even thinking about it, Chao Yaqing told Wei Lizho to give up. Chao Yaqing felt that this reason was made up by Wei Lizho, but Wei Lizho felt that he really didn't fit in with this school. In the spacious and bright bathroom, Wei Lizho brushed his teeth, looked at himself in the mirror, and sighed. If he hadn't had that dream the night before, and hadn't known in advance what was going to happen in the future, their old Wei family would have been unlucky because of him as cannon fodder. Through the prophetic dream, Wei Lizho learned that their world is actually an F4 school Danmei novel. The protagonist Shou Yu Weiyun in the article can be called the male version of Cinderella, while the protagonist Gong Zhu Jinyang is the F1 of the F4 quartet. According to the original plot, Wei Lizho will fall in love with the protagonist Shou at first sight on the first day he transfers to Jiahai International School. It's a pity that he took the script of licking the dog in this novel, and he got nothing in the end. The property of the Wei family was divided up by the family of the F4 quartet, and Wei Lizho himself was shot and died several times in order to save the protagonist Shou Yu Weiyun in a kidnapping case. After Wei Yizhou washed up, he was still puzzled when he walked out of the room. Does that Yu Weiyun have any magic power? He had seen Yu Weiyun's appearance in his dream. Although he was considered pretty and fair, it wouldn't make him crazy about love, and he would be willing to be a spare tire for so many years. Or do you mean that you actually have the potential to become a love brain? Various thoughts flew through Wei Lizhou's mind, but in the end only one firm thought was left. Whoever is the dog licker is the dog. To cherish life starts with refusing to be a licking dog. The restaurant on the first floor of Weijia. While Wei Lizho was washing up, all kinds of exquisite southern breakfasts made by his aunt had been placed on the dining table. The tempting aroma of crystal shrimp dumplings, raw porridge, walnut buns and other foods floated into the air, and then slowly diffused on the dining table. Wei's father, Wei Shunfeng, and Wei's mother, Chao Yaqing, sat at the dining table, chatting and eating breakfast. Wei's father and Wei's mother are both in their early 50s this year, but they don't look old. Wei's father was tall, with the rough appearance of a rough man. At first glance, it doesn't match Weimu's supple and gentle appearance. Before Wei's father made a fortune by developing mineral resources, many people said that Wei's mother married Wei's father as a flower stuck in cow dung. After all, Wei's mother graduated from university and was a university teacher before retiring, while Wei's father dropped out of junior high school because his family was poor, and he was just a poor boy back then. But what no one expected was that Father Wei's business career was as smooth as his name, Wei Shunfeng. To this day, the Wei group founded by Wei's father has developed rapidly. Even if he intends to keep a low profile, Wei's father is still at the top of the domestic rich list. Father Wei is famous in the industry for his good luck. No, after he retired, he bought sapphire mines in the mountains he bought in Yucheng for retirement. Many people were jealous after hearing the news. Why is this Wei Shunfeng like God's son? This man really lives up to his name, blessed. For this, Wei's father wanted to cry but had no tears. Father Wei. He doesn't want this blessing. He made a lot of choices before deciding on his retirement home in Yucheng. The Chinese-style garden villa he built on the mountain was almost completed, but because of this sapphire mine, his retirement resort, which was warm in winter and cool in summer, disappeared and flew away. Because of the episode of the sapphire mine, Wei's father also gave up his idea of going back to the mountains. Not long ago, he took Wei's mother and Wei Lizhou from Yucheng to the economically developed Haicheng. Wei Lizhou went downstairs slowly, sat down at the dining table, and started to eat breakfast with a sad face. Seeing Wei Lizhou's loveless appearance, Father Wei couldn't help but hum contemptuously. "It's outrageous. Isn't it just reading a book, as for such a reluctant look? Why don't you know how to imitate your sister?" When Wei Lizhou heard Father Wei's words, he raised his eyelids and glanced at Father Wei. Is his old man too old to get dizzy? Can he be compared with his sister's genius? In addition to Wei Lizhou, a 17-year-old son, the Wei family also has an eldest daughter, Wei Xingnan. Wei Xingnan is 7 years older than Wei Lizhou. He has been extremely smart since he was a child. He skipped grades all the way during his studies. At the age of 18, he had already completed a postgraduate study in finance at a top foreign school. Now he has completely taken over the Wei group. Before Father Wei retired, the base camp of the Wei family was in Guangcheng. After Wei Xingnan took over the Wei's group, he took a fancy to Haicheng's development potential, and gradually moved the group's headquarters to Haicheng in the past 2 years. This is also the reason why Wei Lizhou and the others did not return to Guangcheng, but moved from Yucheng to Haicheng. Wei Lizhou glanced at Father Wei in disgust, and said carelessly to Father Wei, "If you want to blame me for being too much like you. Nonsense, don't try to blame me for your distaste for reading." Father Wei glared at Wei Lizhou angrily. Wei Lizhou stirred the seafood porridge in the bowl in front of him with a ceramic spoon. His voice was slow but annoying. "When Grandma was alive, she said that my grades are not good and I am tired of studying. I am most like you." Father Wei was not convinced when he heard that. "Then what about your sister Wei Xingnan? How do you explain that you were both born to the same father? Why is your sister so good at studying? Dad, you really don't have any AC numbers in your heart." Wei Lizhou looked up at Father Wei with disgust. "My sister's ability to study hard must be inherited from my mother, and you dare to take credit from my mother." Wei Lizhou shook his head, said "Tsk tisk tsk" contemptuously at his father, then turned his head and complained to Wei's mother, "Mom, look who you married, he actually took credit for you. Although he is my dad, but what he did, I, as a son, really can't stand it." Wei's mother slowly finished the last bite of fresh bamboo shoots and meat buns, and looked up at the father and son who were jumping around and making troubles in the early morning. "Have you father and son finished talking? Eat quickly after you finish talking. Then those who should go to school, and those who should go to work go to work." "Ha!" Father Wei was puzzled for a moment. "Didn't I retire 2 years ago? Why do I still have to go to work?" "You really plan to throw the whole group to Xingnan, and then become the shopkeeper yourself, right?" Wei's mother gave Wei's father an angry look. "You see for yourself how busy your daughter is every day. We have been in Haicheng for a long time, and she just went home. Since you are at home now that you have time to quarrel with your son, then go back to the company, help her, give her a hand." Wei's father was really wronged by his wife's accusation. "The reason why my daughter is so busy is entirely because she is a workaholic." Before Father Wei resigned from the company, his daughter had already shown signs of a workaholic, but it only got worse after he retired. Although Father Wei felt bitter, he didn't dare to say anything. Seeing his old man's unspeakable distress, Wei Lizhou immediately smiled gloatingly. "It's all right now, you have to go to work too." Seeing his smug look, Father Wei rolled his eyes at him instantly. "Don't laugh at the ugly frog. Even if I go to work, I will be much happier than you in class." The smile on Wei Lizhou's face froze for an instant. These words seemed to make sense. When Wei Lizho thought that he might run into the protagonist group when he arrived at the school, he instantly withered. After breakfast, Wei Lizho, who didn't want to go to school, and Wei's father, who didn't want to go to work, were kicked out of the house by Wei's mother. Wei's driver quickly drove Wei Lizho to the gate of Jiahai International School. Today is Monday. When Wei Lizho arrived at school, it happened to be the morning rush hour for school. At this time, the gate of Jiahai International School seemed to be holding a luxury car exhibition, and there were many luxurious and expensive limousines parked there. The driver bowed slightly and opened the rear compartment door, and the students stepped out of their luxury cars gracefully. They wore British-style white short-sleeved shirt uniforms, paired with grey-blue plaid pleated skirts or suit trousers, and walked slowly into the towering marble European-style school gate. These students wearing high-priced school uniforms just glanced at the farce at the school gate at this time, and turned a deaf ear to it. The two brothers Yu Weiyun and Yu Yiqing were blocked by several boys headed by Zhu Qingyu. Zhu Qingyu said to Yu Weiyun in a malicious voice. Yu Weiyun, where is your school uniform? If you don't wear a school uniform, it will cause our class to be deducted points from the discipline society. Can't you afford it? How about I give you a set that I wore? Anyway, we are classmates, so we are destined. Ha ha ha, I also have a few sets that I don't want because they are stained after wearing them. Why don't I give a few sets as well? Zhu Qingyu laughed mockingly. What's wrong with you today? All of you are planning to do charity, right? When Zhu Qingyu spoke out, he deliberately pushed Yu Weiyun who was standing in front of them. Yu Weiyun with a delicate face was staggered by his push, his foot accidentally slipped, and he was about to bump into Yu Yiqing who was standing behind him in black short sleeves. The black short-sleeved shirt on Yu Yiqing's body was already washed a little white, disgust flashed in his indifferent eyes, and he turned slightly to avoid Yu Weiyun's approaching figure. Yu Weiyun steadied his figure dangerously, frowned and looked back at the boy, and asked a little puzzled. Brother. What's wrong with you? Yu Yiqing kept a cold face in silence, his complexion always looked a little pale due to malnutrition, his expression was dull, and the coldness in his eyes at this moment was like the glaciers in the polar regions that have not melted for years. When Yu Weiyun looked into Yu Yiqing's eyes, he was suddenly startled. But when he looked again, Yu Yiqing had already lowered his head slightly. After Yu Yiqing's inky black hair blocked his scrutinizing eyes, Yu Weiyun felt that Yu Yiqing still looked like the dull stone from before. Yu Weiyun took a deep look at Yu Yiqing, probably because he was thinking too much. Because the matter in front of him has not been resolved, Yu Weiyun's mind quickly withdrew from Yu Yiqing. And Yu Yiqing, who was identified by Yu Weiyun as a stone character, lowered his head slightly, and his bangs, which had not been trimmed for a long time, fell down, covering his thin eyebrows and eyes. Under his curly black eyelashes, the surging emotions in his eyes were concealed. He is back. Yu Yiqing's nails pinched his palm tightly, and the tingling pain from his palm made him understand that all this was not his illusion. He had thought he would die in that explosion. But now he is back to the present 10 years ago. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhu Qingyu's clamoring words kept reaching Yu Yiqing's ears. Yu Yiqing's superior memory immediately recalled that the scene in front of him happened shortly after he and Yu Weiyun entered the second year of high school. Although most of the students of Jiahai International School are from rich and powerful families, there are also a small group of students who are special exceptions. In order to create a reputation for charity, Jiahai, an aristocratic school, recruits a small number of students from ordinary families with excellent grades every year. These students are exempted from paying high tuition and board fees during their studies at school, but they need to purchase school uniforms by themselves. This measure of Jiahai is called the Social Assistance Program, and the students admitted through this program are called Social Assisters. Yu Yiqing and Yu Weiyun are sophomore freshmen who came in through the Social Assistance Program. Minority and disadvantaged means easy to be bullied. Life was not so smooth for a social helper at the aristocratic school in Jiahai. After all, The code of conduct of many students here embodies the social Darwinist thought of, the strongest is respected. The reason why Yu Weiyun and Yu Yiqing are now surrounded at the school gate is precisely because Yu Weiyun helped a social aid student who was bullied by Zhu Qingyu yesterday. Yu Yiqing had nothing to do with this matter. After all, it was Yu Weiyun who wanted to be a hero. The reason why he was also besieged by Zhu Qingyu and his group at the school gate was because Yu Weiyun dragged him when he was about to leave just now, and stopped him from leaving. In the eyes of most people, Yu Weiyun's step forward yesterday is in line with the kindness he has shown in the past. But Yu Yiqing understood that Yu Weiyun was just using this to show off in front of Zhu Jinyang. After all, Zhu Jinyang was also present yesterday. And Zhu Qingyu, who took the lead in bullying that student, is the illegitimate son of the Zhu family, and he and Zhu Jinyang are half-brothers who have a bad relationship. Yu Weiyun used that student's excuse to scold Zhu Qingyu yesterday, making Zhu Qingyu unable to step down in front of so many people, which is naturally something that Zhu Jinyang likes to hear. Zhu Qingyu was naturally unwilling to lose face in front of so many people, so he stopped Yu Weiyun at the school gate today, intending to regain yesterday's position with Yu Weiyun. Zhu Qingyu looked at Yu Weiyun and sneered, "Yu Weiyun, don't you and Zhu Jinyang have a good relationship? Why isn't he by your side to you now?" Yu Weiyun pursed her lips, and said unhappily, "This has nothing to do with you." The scene of Zhu Qingyu and Yu Weiyun arguing at this time fell into the eyes of Wei Lizhou, who was sitting in the back seat of the car not far away. If Wei Lizhou didn't know the development of the original plot, he might have stepped forward at this time, fighting for Yu Weiyun. But now Wei Lizhou has given up all his thoughts of being a hero to save the beauty. Little life is important, he still wants to live happily for decades. Besides, Yu Weiyun helped Zhu Jinyang divide up his family's property in the original plot. Wei Lizhou thought he was not a saint, and he was not so generous as to not care about it. Wei Lizhou propped his chin with one hand, his eyes fell on the smiling Zhu Qingyu at the school gate through the black window glass. Cannon fodder. Zhu Qingyu's label in Wei Lizhou's heart at this time is exactly that. In Wei Lizhou's prophetic dream, Zhu Qingyu lost to Zhu Jinyang when he competed with the protagonist Zhu Jinyang for the succession of the Zhu family. Later, he was forced to ruin by Zhu Jinyang and Yu Weiyun's teamwork, and finally jumped off the building to his death. Wei Lizhou didn't care about Zhu Qingyu's future. After all, Zhu Qingyu is arrogant and domineering, no matter how you look at it, he is not a master worthy of sympathy. Wei Lizhou glanced casually, and when he noticed the boy in the black shirt standing next to Yu Weiyun with his head bowed, the first thought that came to his mind was that this man was as thin as if he was malnourished, and he felt like a gust of wind would blow him away. Can take him away. When Wei Lizhou looked curiously at the boy in the black shirt, the boy happened to raise his head, revealing his indifferent and distanced face. After seeing the boy's appearance clearly, Wei Lizhou stared blankly. Is it Yu Yiqing? Wei Lizhou didn't recognize that person as Yu Yiqing just now. After all, he rarely saw Yu Yiqing in his dreams, and he had a very faint impression of Yu Yiqing. His main impression of Yu Yiqing is that this is the protagonist show Yu Weiyun's cannon fodder brother who keeps targeting the protagonist show because of jealousy. However, to Wei Lizhou's surprise, in the precognitive dream, when their Wei family was besieged by the F4 family, Wei's father suddenly received a capital injection from Yu Yiqing. Although he didn't understand where Yu Yiqing got such a sum of money, and the money didn't change the result of Wei's group being acquired and divided up, Wei Lizhou still felt grateful for Yu Yiqing's behavior. Just as Wei Lizhou looked at Yu Yiqing and fell into deep thought, the conflict at the school gate at this time had become more and more gunpowder-like. Zhu Qingyu has made up his mind to take revenge on Yu Weiyun, so as to save face and gain power for himself who was ashamed yesterday. Zhu Qingyu's expression was ferocious, he took a step forward, trying to grab Yu Weiyun, but Yu Weiyun dodged back, and hid behind Yu Yiqing nimbly. Yu Weiyun's dodge immediately enraged Zhu Qingyu even more. Seeing the cruelty on Zhu Qingyu's face, Yu Weiyun couldn't help but tremble with fear, but the expression on his face hiding behind Yuiching was still calm and composed. He looked at Zhu Qingyu, and said in a contemptuous voice. Zhu Qingyu, this is a school, not a place for you to fight fiercely. Everyone is a student, so what right do you have to bully people here? Yu Weiyun pretended to be calm, but his eyes also quietly looked towards the direction outside the school gate. A trace of doubt and urgency flashed quickly in his eyes. Zhu Jinyang usually arrives at the school gate at this time, almost unshakable. Why hasn't he appeared today? And Zhu Qingyu didn't expect that Yu Weiyun would dare to provoke him at this moment. He simply didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, his anger rushed straight to his head. Gritting his teeth, he was as angry as an enraged bison. With a sinister voice, he ordered to the servant beside him, "Give it to me, and improve the memory of these two ants who don't know how to live or die." Because Yu Weiyun used Yuiching as a shield, Zhu Qingyu also held a grudge against Yuiching, an irrelevant person who kept silent from beginning to end. Yu Weiyun was as anxious as ants on a hot pan at this moment. The reason why he had the courage to confront Zhu Qingyu was because he knew that Zhu Jinyang liked him and would protect him. He thought that Zhu Jinyang would show up soon, but he hasn't been seen until now. Yu Weiyun didn't want to see himself being beaten black and swollen, so his image in front of Zhu Jinyang might also be damaged. When Yu Weiyun was anxiously thinking about the solution, he suddenly heard Yuiching, who stood in front of him with a cold voice, and said to Zhu Qingyu, "This is a matter between you, it has nothing to do with me, don't involve me." Yu Weiyun was stunned immediately. He didn't expect that Yuiching, who used to be as taciturn as a wooden man, would say such words at this moment. When Yu Weiyun was aggrieved and wanted to ask Yuiching why he had separated from his younger brother, a voice suddenly sounded behind everyone. "Hi, excuse me everyone, do you know how to get to the office of the second grade?" Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wei Lizho, who suddenly appeared here, immediately attracted everyone's attention. When they first saw Wei Lizho with a straight nose and sharp facial features, even from the eyes of boys, they had to admit that this boy who appeared suddenly had a good face. But after realizing what he said, everyone froze for a moment. Although he looks good, he seems like a mindless idiot. Can't read the air, can't see clearly that no one of them has the thought to be a kind guide for him now. Zhu Qingyu glanced at Wei Lizho with arrogant eyes. "Who are you, why are you asking this?" Zhu Qingyu didn't remember that he had met Wei Lizho in the upper circles of Haicheng. He preconceived and felt that Wei Lizho was probably an insignificant little person. Wei Lizho ignored his question, but walked up to Yuiching on his own. He raised his hand carelessly on Yuiching's thin shoulders, and smiled at Yuiching with a sunny face. "This classmate, as soon as I saw your face, I knew that you and I must be compatible. Why don't I ask you to help me out? Everyone present thought it's just leading the way, it's not a marriage, and it's even about compatibility." Wei Lizho didn't care about other people's weird expressions, and before Yuiching could reply, he hugged Yuiching's shoulder affectionately and led him out of the encirclement circle of Zhu Qingyu and the others. Wei Lizho's nonsensical series of movements were too fast, coupled with Yuiching's obedience. So when Zhu Qingyu and Yu Weiyun reacted, Wei Lizho and Yuiching had already walked a long distance. Seeing Yuiching leaving her back without hesitation, Yu Weiyun couldn't help but complain to Yuiching in his eyes. "Yuiching, why is he doing this, leaving himself here alone? Yu Weiyun has already placed an order." The reason why Yuiching was taken away so easily by Wei Lizho just now is because everyone didn't react. But the person Zhu Qingyu and the others originally wanted to take revenge on was Yu Weiyun. Now that Yu Weiyun wants to get away like Yuiching, he has to ask Zhu Qingyu if he agrees. After Yuiching was taken away from the school gate by Wei Lizho, he glanced coldly at Wei Lizho's hand on his shoulder, and said indifferently, "You can take your hand away." Facing Yuiching's indifferent attitude, Wei Lizho smiled indifferently, and took his hand back casually. Yuiching raised his eyelids, glanced at Wei Lizho scrutinizingly, and then lowered his eyes, with thoughts and doubts lingering in them. When Wei Lizho appeared at the school gate just now, he thought that Wei Lizho would stand up for Yu Wei-yun like he did in his previous life. At that time, he didn't take Wei Lizho's appearance to heart, he only thought that Wei Lizho had better solve this matter quickly, and he didn't want to waste time here at the school gate. But Wei Lizho's subsequent actions were beyond his expectations. There was something deep in Yu Yi's light-colored amber eyes. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. Since he was able to be reborn, maybe Wei Lizho had a similar encounter with him. After Yu Yiqing came to this guess, his heart was at peace, but he secretly became a little more wary of Wei Lizho. Yes, only a few points to watch out for. Based on Yu Yiqing's understanding of Wei Lizho in the previous life, he didn't feel that he needed to care too much about Wei Lizho's variable. After all, Wei Lizho was so stupid that he didn't want to talk about it anymore. He guessed that even if Wei Lizho was really reborn like him, he probably didn't even know how he died. What Yu Yiqing is really guarding against now is Yu Wei-yun and Zhu Jinyang and the family forces behind them. Yu Yiqing didn't need to think to be sure that the instigator behind the explosion that led to his rebirth must be Zhu Jinyang and his forces. In the new life, Yu Yiqing naturally planned to seize the opportunity to accumulate strength for himself. Since he was able to drive Zhu Jinyang and the others to the point of desperation in his last life, let alone this life. Wei Lizho, who knew nothing about Yu Yiqing's thoughts at this time, still observed the school environment carelessly. After Wei Lizho looked at the environment of the new school, he realized that Yu Yiqing, who was walking beside him, had remained silent since he said that sentence just now. Wei Lizho was not used to such an awkward silent atmosphere, he scratched his head, trying to find a topic in his mind. After a while, he uttered a question dryly. Yu Yiqing, how is your school cafeteria? Early in the morning, Yu Yi saw Wei Lizho's hesitant appearance beside him. He originally thought that Wei Lizho was planning to talk to him about some serious topics, but he didn't expect Wei Lizho to hold back for so long, and finally asked such a boring and childish question. Yu Yiqing couldn't help being silent for a moment. Then, he raised his cold eyes and looked at Wei Lizho. How do you know my name? Wei Lizho's heart skipped a beat, and he was immediately speechless when he was asked. His mind turned quickly, he laughed and yelled, and hurriedly covered up his guilt. Just now, I heard someone call you that. I see. Yu Yiqing nodded indifferently. In Yu Yiqing's view, Wei Lizho's performance was simply clumsy. At the school gate just now, no one mentioned his name. Yu Yiqing didn't need to guess to be sure, Zhu Chengyu and the others probably didn't even know what his name was. However, Yu Yiqing also had doubts about Wei Lizho's rebirth. After all, if Wei Lizho was also a reborn like him, then his performance shouldn't be as immature as he is now. At least, it should be a little better than it is now. But Yu Yiqing now also has a definite conclusion, that is, Wei Lizho must know something. When Wei Lizho saw that Yu Yiqing didn't question him, as if he was convinced of his answer, he couldn't help but heaved a sigh of relief. Got fooled. Hey, thanks to his wit. In Wei Lizho's precognitive dream, he only saw things before his death. He knew nothing about what happened after his death. However, Wei Lizho guessed that according to the development of ordinary novels, Yu Yiqing, an unknown pawn, has no power, and he will definitely be cleaned up by Yu Wei-yun and Zhu Jinyang's four-person team in a short time. They are also the cannon fodder of Tianya. Wei Lizho wondered inwardly whether he should talk to Yu Yiqing to avoid confronting Yu Wei-yun and Zhu Jinyang. After all, compared to himself, a person like Yu Yiqing who has no family background, going against the protagonist group is simply suicidal. Wei Lizho remembered that Yu Yiqing seemed to have become a vagrant in the foretelling dream of the future. From this point of view, what Yu Yiqing got was a proper cannon fodder script. Just when Wei Lizho was hesitating how to persuade Yu Yiqing, those who know the current affairs are heroes, and don't confront Yu Wei-yun and the others, Yu Yiqing's ice-cold voice suddenly sounded. Arrive. What? Wei Lizho was a little confused and didn't react. Yu Yiqing looked up at the door plate hanging outside the office, the sophomore office you are looking for. After he finished speaking, before Wei Lizho could reply, he raised his feet and turned indifferently, left the office door, and walked towards the classroom. Wei Lizho looked at the back of Yu Yiqing leaving without hesitation, and had no choice but to hide his persuasion thoughts in his heart. Forget it, let's talk about it later when I have a chance. In the high school teacher's office. What? Wei Lizhou's startled voice resounded throughout the office of the second year of high school. Why do I have to go to class 8, grade 2? No, I want to transfer, I don't want to go to class 8. Wei Lizho looked at the director of grade 2 in front of him, with a hard accept expression on his face. The middle-aged bald grade director smiled and said. Student Wei, your mother has communicated with us in advance. She said that she will obey all the school's arrangements. If you have any objections, she asks you to communicate with her first. Wei's mother was worried that Wei Lizho would be a monster in the school, so she expressed her thoughts to the school in advance. If Wei Lizho makes trouble, let her clean it up. Hearing that the grade director raised the banner of his own mother, Wei Lizho suddenly took a break from his thoughts. But in order not to be in the same class as the protagonists Shou Yu Weiyun and Zhu Jinyang, he still decided to try to struggle. Wei Lizhou's voice carried a bit of obvious temptation. If you let me transfer, I will ask my dad to donate a library to the school. When Wei Lizho said this, his heart was bleeding from pain. After all, his father will definitely not pay this sum of money so easily, and in the end it is very likely that he will have to overdraft his father's New Year's money in advance for the next few years. Li Ruyu, the head teacher of class 8, grade 2, who stood waiting at the side, silently glanced at Wei Lizho when he heard Wei Lizhou's offer. Is their second and 8th class a dragon's pool and a tiger's den? It shouldn't be like this. Hearing that Wei Lizho said that he would donate to the library, the smile on the grade director's face remained unchanged. He said in an extremely calm voice. Student Wei, we appreciate your kindness. However, your mother has offered to donate to build 3 libraries for the school. Wei Lizho. Hatred. It turned out that his mother gave too much. Seeing that Wei Lizho had died down, the grade director said to Li Ruyu, who had been standing quietly by the side, Teacher Li Ruyu, please take Wei to the class to settle down. Although Wei Lizho disliked the class he led, Li Ruyu still showed a warm business smile to Wei Lizho. After all, she has been teaching in this school for a long time, and she has met all kinds of strange students. Wei Lizhou's type is still within the normal range. Wei Lizho. He didn't expect that the middle-aged woman standing next to the grade teacher was actually the head teacher of class 8. Embarrassing. Isn't this just saying bad things in front of the person involved? Wei Lizho twitched the corners of his mouth at Li Ruyu, and explained in embarrassment. Teacher, I'm not targeting you, it's just that I don't agree with the number 8. Li Ruyu smiled, and ignored Wei Lizhou's explanation of horizontal incompatibility, but turned to say. Student Wei, class is about to start, the teacher will take you to the classroom. The head teacher brought Wei Lizho to the classroom. The appearance of Wei Lizho immediately attracted the attention of the students in the classroom. After all, there are very few transfer students in their school. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The eyes of the students in the class who examined and evaluated fell on Wei Lizho one after another. Who is this new face? Do any of you know him? Do not know. I haven't seen it either. My family background is probably not very good. Although the background is probably average, he is quite handsome. Compared with Zhu Jinyang, his appearance is not inferior. Don't compare any cat or dog with Zhu Xiao, not everyone is qualified to be compared with Zhu Xiao. The Zhu family, the Yan family, the Lu family and the Yi family are the top old wealthy families in Haicheng. The children of these four families have a high status in Jiahai International School and are quite sought after. Oh, who doesn't know that you like Zhu Jinyang, as for speaking for him like this? Is there anything wrong with liking young Master Zhu? After all, he is the future successor of the Zhu family. Do you think this transfer student is another social helper? I am annoyed when I see social helpers now, especially that Yu Weiyun, who is like Zhu Jinyang's follower all day long, always pestering him. My God, it's not enough, we have enough Yu Yiqing and Yu Weiyun in our class. If there is another one, I will ask my mother to transfer me. So what's the matter with being a social helper? Yu Yiqing was the first in the grade in the last monthly exam. Yu Yiqing is pretty good, but how did Yu Weiyun get into our school? The words of these discussions reached the ears of Yu Yiqing, who was sitting in the last row by the window on the innermost side of the classroom. Yu Yiqing lowered his eyes indifferently, even though he was mentioned in these conversations. But he still wasn't distracted by the sudden noise in the classroom. Holding the pen with his thin fingertips, he quickly solved difficult math problems one after another. On the podium, Wei Lizho stood beside the class teacher, looked down, and noticed Yu Yiqing, who was sitting in the far corner of the classroom at first sight. Yu Yiqing's surroundings were as cold and deserted as if there was no one in the wilderness, and the surrounding noise was like an invisible transparent glass wall separating him from him. Just when Wei Lizho was about to look away from Yu Yiqing seemed to feel Wei Lizho's gaze, and happened to raise his head and look over. The eyes of the two were in the air, and they collided unexpectedly. Wei Lizho subconsciously showed him a hearty and sunny smile as a greeting. Yu Yiqing looked indifferent, directly lowered his head, and continued to do the questions to pass the time. Wei Lizho didn't expect Yu Yiqing's reaction to be so indifferent. He scratched his head in embarrassment, and withdrew his smile. The interaction between Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing fell into the eyes of the rest of the class, and they confirmed their guess that Wei Lizho was also a social supporter. The homeroom teacher looked at Wei Lizho and said, "Student Wei, please introduce yourself to everyone so that everyone can get to know you." Wei Lizho was far less enthusiastic about these future classmates than he was towards Yu Yiqing. His tone was lukewarm and perfunctory. Wei Lizho, just transferred from Yucheng. Yucheng. Wei Lizho's words immediately aroused whispers from the people below. Have you ever heard of this city? It seems to be a small fifth-tier city, right? The central urban area is not as prosperous as the outer suburbs of our Haicheng. But I heard that the scenery is quite good. TSK, the school's admissions office can change a group of staff, and now it's really an individual that can enroll. Hey, don't say that, anyway, the admissions office is looking for this one, it's quite pleasing to the eye. Seeing that Wei Lizho had finished his self-introduction, the head teacher asked the students below. Who among you intends to be at the same table with Wei Lizho? After the class teacher asked this question, there was silence under the podium, and no student answered him. The homeroom teacher had no choice but to take the initiative to roll the roll. Gu Yang, there is an empty seat next to you. Let Wei Lizho sit next to you. Gu Yang, who was called by name, is a classmate with a more restrained personality in the class. Hearing what the head teacher said, he pursed his lips in resistance. Teacher, why not let Wei Lizho sit next to Yu Yiqing? There is also a seat next to Yu Yiqing, and I think the two of them may have more common topics. The homeroom teacher looked at Yu Yiqing. Student Yu Yiqing, what do you say? When Yu Yiqing heard what the class teacher said, he looked up at the podium, and saw Wei Lizho blinking and looking at him expectantly. Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing's thin lips parted slightly. I don't care. Hearing Yu Yiqing's agreement, before the teacher could speak, Wei Lizho threw the school bag in his hand behind him and walked towards Yu Yiqing's place. Report. As soon as Wei Lizho stepped off the podium, he heard a voice coming from the door. He followed the direction of the sound and looked towards the door. Zhu Qingyu, Yu Weiyun, and the protagonist Gong Zhu Jinyang, whom he met at the school gate just now, were all standing at the door. Obviously, even without Wei Lizho stepping forward, Yu Wei-yun, the protagonist, was still saved by Zhu Jinyang, the protagonist. When seeing the faces of Zhu Qingyu and Zhu Jinyang at this time, Wei Lizho let out a "poochie" and couldn't help laughing. Zhu Qingyu and the protagonist Gong Zhu Jinyang each have a bruised eye on their faces, one on the left and the other on the right. When the two stand together, it is quite funny. The situation on the faces of Zhu Jinyang and Zhu Qingyu was naturally seen by other students in the class. But Wei Lizho was the only one who had the guts to laugh out loud at this moment. Therefore, his laughter was very obvious in the quiet classroom at this time. Zhu Qingyu and Zhu Jinyang, the half-brothers, rarely showed some tacit understanding, and they both looked at Wei Lizho with a kind of indifference. Wei Lizho. If he explains now that he didn't mean it, is there still time? The class bell rang just at this moment. The teacher in charge broke the weird awkward atmosphere. Class is about to start, everyone, hurry up and sit back in your seats. After Wei Lizho sat down next to Yu Yiqing, he couldn't help covering his face in embarrassment. He originally thought that even if he didn't make friends with Zhu Jinyang and Yu Wei-yun, he still didn't want to offend them. It's a pity. It collapsed at the beginning. Thinking that he might have offended Zhu Jinyang, the protagonist, Wei Lizho simply lowered his bottom line. The most important and the lowest standard. That is, you can't be Yu Wei-yun's spare tire-licking dog even if you are killed, and let Yu Wei-yun ask for it. After Wei Lizho successfully explained to himself in his heart, he immediately forgot what happened just now. At this time, Yu Wei-yun was listening to the students at the front desk discussing about Wei Lizho. He didn't expect that the boy he met at the school gate was actually a transfer student from his class. And this transfer student is also a social supporter. After confirming that Wei Lizho's identity was unremarkable, Yu Wei-yun didn't take him seriously. And Zhu Jinyang, who was Yu Wei-yun's tablemate, naturally also heard the comments of the students around him. He looked arrogant and snorted coldly, "I will find a chance to relax this kid someday." Zhu Jinyang, as the young master of the Zhu family, was pampered and raised like a star in the moon since he was a child. He has never met anyone who dared to laugh at him so blindly. As soon as Zhu Jinyang said the threatening words, he remembered that Yu Wei-yun who was sitting next to him had always been kind. Worried that Yu Wei-yun would have a bad impression of himself because of this incident, Zhu Jinyang hurriedly turned his head and explained to him. "What I said just now meant nothing else, just to teach him a little lesson, and nothing will happen to him." Although Yu Wei-yun didn't care about what would happen to Wei Lizho in his heart, he still made a gesture of disapproval on the surface. "We are all classmates, so don't bully him. Although I transferred to this school in the first semester of my sophomore year. But after getting along for a period of time from school to now, Yu Wei-yun has established a kind and warm image for herself in front of Zhu Jinyang." The irritable Zhu Jinyang was more patient when facing Yu Wei-yun. He nodded perfunctorily, "Yeah, I see, don't worry. It's just to let the short-sighted kid stay in the hospital for a few days." Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wei Lizho, who had no idea about Zhu Jinyang's thinking, propped his chin with his forehand at this time, and looked at Yu Yiqing doing the question with his head tilted. Yu Yiqing is like a high-speed computer, quickly outputting the answers to each question without the slightest hesitation. The tip of the pen rubs against the paper surface continuously, making a thin, rustling sound. Wei Lizho couldn't help but let out a soft wow with emotion. It's so hypnotic. This rustle sound is the same as those ASMR sleep aid sounds, and the hypnotic effect is really strong. Wei Lizho blinked his eyelids, and couldn't help yawning. His eyes seemed to close any second. Yu Yiqing originally didn't care about Wei Lizho staring at him. But after Wei Lizho kept looking towards him for a long time, he couldn't help frowning. Even if you look at it, it takes too much time. With some dissatisfaction in Yu Yiqing's eyes, he raised his head and looked back at Wei Lizho coldly, but what he saw left him speechless. Wei Lizho propped his chin with one hand, closed his eyes, and slept soundly, the corners of his mouth even slightly curled up, looking like he was having a sweet dream. Yu Yiqing. This person that is really an idiot. Therefore, Wei Lizho passed the first class when he came to the school to report, just like this in his sleep. When the bell rang for the end of get out of class, the teacher walked out of the classroom with the lesson plan, and there was a loud chatter and laughter in the classroom. Even though Wei Lizho was a new transfer student, no one came over to say hi or greet him. If they didn't know Wei Lizho's information, they might come to ask Wei Lizho about his family background, so as to measure whether it is necessary to associate with him. But now, none of them would be curious about a social helper. Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing's corner by the window seemed to be enchanted by invisibility magic, and it looked like a transparent and invisible existence in the eyes of the students in the class. Yu Yiqing has long been used to all this, and he even wished that these people would never bother him. The only thing that made him feel a little uncomfortable was Wei Lizho, who was sitting next to him soundly asleep at this moment, with a sense of presence. Yu Yiqing didn't want to meddle in Wei Lizho's business, but not even if he wanted to sleep, there was no need to face him. Yu Yiqing glanced coldly at Wei Lizho's sleeping face, suddenly straightened his long legs under the desk, and kicked Wei Lizho's desk mercilessly. With a sound of, Wei Lizho's hand supporting his chin slipped, and he woke up in a start, looking left and right. What's wrong? Wei Lizho slept a little dazedly, and there was still a faint red mark on one side of his cheek. Yu Yiqing ignored Wei Lizho's doubts, and turned the Rubik's Cube in his hand with his white fingertips. But Wei Lizho realized that it was already the end of get out of class time when he saw the laughing figures of the students in front of the classroom. Wei Lizho stretched his waist comfortably. It turns out that get out of class is over. After sleeping in class for such a long time, Wei Lizho's mind is clear after a full sleep, and he can't help but want to find something to do. He looked at Yu Yiqing who was sitting beside him. Yu Yiqing was turning the Rubik's Cube in his hand quickly with his fingers, and he turned one side of the Rubik's Cube in a short while. The Rubik's Cube in Yu Yiqing's hand can be seen to be quite old. The surface of the Rubik's Cube is extremely smooth, and the color on it has faded to a bit whitish. Wei Lizho was a little surprised when he noticed the two English letters, TG, engraved on the upper right corner of one side of the Rubik's Cube. TG is a century-old French luxury brand, mainly producing clothing products. But their family occasionally designs some limited edition toys. When Wei Lizho was a child, he played with the TG Rubik's Cube that was exactly the same as Yu Yiqing's. It was a gift from his sister Wei Xingnan. However, his Rubik's Cube has long since been received into which box it was ashes, but the one Yu Yiqing is holding in his hand at this time can be seen to be well preserved. Wei Lizho took the initiative to lean over. He observed it with interest for a while and asked, Yu Yiqing, do you like playing Rubik's Cube very much? Yu Yiqing glanced at him, and said indifferently, you think too much. Yu Yiqing looked down at the Rubik's Cube in his hand. Although the Rubik's Cube looked very old, it was the only toy he had since childhood. After all, Yu Weiyun doesn't like the Rubik's Cube, so he doesn't need to worry about giving up the Rubik's Cube to Yu Weiyun at any time. Wei Lizho looked disbelieving. If you don't like it, how can you play so well? He just saw with his own eyes how quickly Yu Yiqing solved the Rubik's Cube. Wei Lizho didn't specifically time it, but he felt that the time Yu Yiqing spent might not even take a minute. This amazing hand speed is very difficult to achieve without some time training. Perhaps after confirming that Wei Lizho was no threat to him, Yu Yiqing was rarely interested in talking to Wei Lizho. He glanced at Wei Lizho. In this world, not everything needs to be liked as an emotional support. Wei Lizho. If you don't like it or have no interest, how can you do it well? Yu Yiqing felt that Wei Lizho's words were a little naive, so he said lightly. You can do well with your brain. You are right. Wei Lizho nodded in agreement, but continued. But you should have been playing Rubik's Cube for a long time. I think if a person can persevere in doing something, if he doesn't like it, it must be it's hard to go on. So, maybe you actually like Rubik's Cube, but you don't know it. When Yuiching heard Wei Lizhou's words, he was stunned for a moment. He remembered that in his last life, he had accidentally heard his subordinates say that he was like a robot with no desires, no hobbies, and no human touch in him. Yuiching himself agrees with this point of view. After all, he is indifferent to everything. So he always felt that he was just used to the existence of this Rubik's Cube. Yuiching took a deep look at the old Rubik's Cube in his hand. Under the bright sunlight by the window, the Rubik's Cube glows with a warmer light after years. Seeing Yuiching's pensive expression, Wei Lizhou smiled triumphantly. How about it, am I right? Did you suddenly realize that you actually like the Rubik's Cube? Yuiching raised his eyes and glanced at Wei Lizhou's smug look. He pursed his lips, and denied in a cold voice. You think too much. After finishing speaking, he stuffed the Rubik's Cube back into the drawer under the desk. The corners of Wei Lizhou's mouth rose brilliantly. Student Yuiching, don't be dubious. It's not something to be ashamed of liking Rubik's Cube. You can admit it openly, and I won't laugh at you. Yuiching raised his eyelids and glanced at Wei Lizhou. Yuiching didn't want to continue to entangle with Wei Lizhou on this topic. He directly pulled a math-filled blank practice question on the table, and silently started the paper. Wei Lizhou saw that Yuiching was studying, so he was too embarrassed to talk to him, worried that he would be disturbed to do the questions. But Wei Lizhou turned off the fire, and the white-faced and slightly fat boy sitting in front of Yuiching became more and more agitated. Holding a bag of potato chips in his hand, wearing headphones, watching the idle stage performance on the flat screen on the table, his body is still shaking, his head following the melody. His figure is not thin, so he bumped into Yuiching's table behind him from time to time. Yuiching didn't seem to be disturbed at all, but Wei Lizhou couldn't get used to it now. In Wei Lizhou's cognition, Yuiching can barely be regarded as his friend now. How could he see this little fat man bullying him like this? Wei Lizhou tugged at the little fat man's collar. The boy with a round bun face turned his head, swallowed the potato chips in his mouth, and said in a dissatisfied voice, "What are you doing?" Wei Lizhou pointed at the desk with his finger. "You are disturbing others' study." The little fat man snorted arrogantly. "Yuiching didn't say that I disturbed his study. Why are you worrying so much?" After saying that, the little fat man turned his head away, and continued to be intoxicated by his idle stage. And it seemed that in order to retaliate against Wei Lizhou's actions just now, he swayed his body a little more vigorously, and deliberately hit Yuiching's table with his back. When Wei Lizhou saw it, he raised his brow sharply and laughed angrily. Hey, he doesn't show off his power, and this little fat man treats him like a sick cat. With a sound of, Wei Lizhou stretched his long legs under the table, and kicked the chair that the little fat man was sitting on viciously. The little fat man was so frightened that he almost jumped up from the chair. He turned his head angrily, glared at Wei Lizhou, and asked in a rough voice, "What are you doing?" Wei Lizhou propped his chin with one hand, twitched the corners of his mouth, and smiled arrogantly. "Why not, just for fun, what's wrong?" You. The little fat man raised his eyebrows angrily. "What are you? You should continue. Don't you like listening to music?" "I happen to like it too, and I especially like percussion music. Today is a rare opportunity, and I just happen to be able to practice hard." There was a provocative smile on the corner of Wei Lizhou's mouth. The little fat man saw that Wei Lizhou was not easy to mess with, so he didn't dare to continue to confront him. In the end, he just said harshly, "Wei Lizhou, you wait for me. I must let my cousin take care of you." Wei Lizhou has fought so many fights, how can he not see that this little fat man is a bullying little coward? He smiled leisurely and said, "Is one cousin enough? Do you have other cousins and cousins? Do you want to call them all over? What a shame." The little fat man gritted his white teeth and stared at Wei Lizhou. But he also felt that he could not beat Wei Lizho alone, so he could only secretly comfort himself, that it is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge for 10 years. He will come back another day to settle the score with Wei Lizho. Seeing the little fat man angrily turning around and returning to his position, not daring to act like a monster again, Wei Lizho curled his lips. Xiao Mian still wanted to fight with him, but it seemed that he was in a hurry. Wei Lizho turned his head to look at Yu Yiqing, and saw Yu Yiqing looking up at him. Wei Lizho said to him as if asking for credit. Don't worry about writing your test paper, if he dares to touch your desk again, I will stop you. Play a percussion to listen. Although the little fat man was wearing earphones on his head at this time, the volume had already been turned to mute, in order to observe the movement of Wei Lizho behind him. Hearing what Wei Lizho said, his body froze immediately, and his upper body silently leaned forward. When Yu Yiqing heard what Wei Lizho said, his expression remained calm. Then he lowered his head and continued to do those subjects that were so simple to him that they were not challenging. As time passed, it was soon the last class of the day. This class happens to be a physical education class. After finishing a series of warm-up exercises, the physical education teacher let them move freely. Wei Lizho thought that he didn't know anyone else on the first day he transferred to another school, and he was only acquainted with his deskmate Yu Yiqing, so he followed Yu Yiqing. Yu Yiqing just glanced at him lightly, and didn't say anything about his familiar behavior. After all, the school is not his, and he has no control over where Wei Lizho wants to go. It's almost 5 o'clock now, but the summer sun in September is still very sunny. Wei Lizho followed Yu Yiqing to the foot of a big tree with luxuriant trees. The round stone table and low pure stone chairs placed under the tree had a cool texture. Seeing Yu Yiqing sitting at the stone table, Wei Lizho also sat on another stone chair next to him. Seeing that Yu Yiqing even came to physical education class with a large English medical book borrowed from the school library, Wei Lizho couldn't help feeling. You are really the second person I have ever seen who loves reading books. Gone. If an ordinary person heard Wei Lizho say this, he might ask who was the first person. But Yu Yiqing was not interested in this at all. He flipped a page of the book lightly, without even raising his head. Wei Lizho put his hands on the stone table, propped his chin and said, "Don't you want to know who the first person is?" Yu Yiqing turned over a page of paper with his fingertips. "I don't want to." He knew who it was without guessing. When Wei Lizho heard Yu Yiqing's reply, he became rebellious and wanted to tell him more and more. Wei Lizho had a wicked smile on his lips. "Hey, if you don't want to know, then I'll just say that that person is my sister Wei Xingnan." Childish. Yu Yiqing couldn't help raising her eyes and cast a glance at Wei Lizho. But when he lowered his head and continued to read, Wei Lizho's expression when he mentioned Wei Xingnan just now appeared in his mind. Proud, and even proud. It was a feeling that Yu Yiqing was unfamiliar with. He pursed his lips and thought, the relationship between the siblings of the Wei family is really good. Also, if it wasn't for his extraordinary feelings, Wei Xingnan would not have been as stubborn as him in his last life for Yu Weiyun and his group. Seeing that Yu Yiqing didn't say a word, Wei Lizho smiled triumphantly. "How about it, do you feel that you have lost and feel unwilling?" Yu Yiqing. Sure enough, he is an idiot. Who cares about his ranking, and there is nothing like this kind of thing. Wei Lizho reached out and patted Yu Yi's listless shoulder. "Don't be discouraged, just keep working hard. After all, my sister is a few years older than us. I am very optimistic about you. Wait for some day, I think you surpass she's gone, and I'm going to make fun of her." When Wei Lizho thought of his friend defeating his sister in a certain aspect, he couldn't help but put his hands on his hips and laughed happily. Without Yu Yiqing's knowledge, Wei Lizho has now unilaterally regarded Yu Yiqing as his friend. Yu Yiqing. Since Wei Lizho wants to defeat Wei Xingnan, shouldn't he work hard by himself? Why should he be asked to work hard? Besides, even in terms of reading volume, he might not lose to Wei Xingnan now. Wait, why did he want to compete with that woman Wei Xingnan in such a boring thing? Realizing that he was actually following that idiot Wei Lizhou's way of thinking, Yuiqing couldn't help but squeeze the pages of the book in his hand. He was also acting stupid. Oh, it seems that the two of you are quite leisurely here, it's really annoying. The harsh rooster's voice suddenly sounded, breaking the harmonious atmosphere between Wei Lizhou and Yuiqing at this time. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wei Lizhou turned his head to look in the direction of the voice, and saw that it was Zhu Chengyu and the few dog legs following him. He frowned, it seemed that the visitor was not kind. Wei Lizhou suddenly understood why Zhu Chengyu was a cannon fodder in that novel. Look at how aggressive he is now, bullying and dominating the market. Who can cannon fodder if he doesn't? Although Wei Lizhou didn't want to cause trouble, he was not afraid of it. How could he just let Zhu Qingyu provoke him like that? What did you just say? You don't like us. Your eyes are on yourself. Since you don't like your eyes, then don't look. Wei Lizhou twitched the corners of his mouth, with a casual smile on his face, and continued. None of us cares about your attention, and you take yourself too seriously, don't you? Yi Panbai, the little fat man who happened to pass by at the front desk, couldn't help but gasped when he heard Wei Lizhou's words. Good guy, Wei Lizhou is a real man, he is not afraid of getting into trouble. Others may not know, but Yi Panbai knew that Zhu Qingyu was born as an illegitimate child, so he always suspected that others were laughing at him in his heart. What he hates the most is that others look down on him and don't take him seriously. What Wei Lizhou said casually directly stepped on Zhu Qingyu's minefield. The anger in Zhu Qingyu's heart at this moment was like being doused with a bucket full of hot oil, making it burn more and more violently. He gritted his teeth tightly, glared furiously, and his face exuded a fierce aura, every word, in a vicious and slow voice. I think you really want to die. Zhu Qingyu originally planned to simply teach Wei Lizhou a lesson, but Wei Lizhou dared to laugh at his black eyes this morning. But now he has changed his mind. If Wei Lizhou hadn't been lying in the hospital for a few months afterwards, it would be hard to dispel the hatred in his heart at this time. Zhu Qingyu didn't think there was any problem with what he did. He felt that Wei Lizhou was just a social helper who was useless to him. However, Zhu Qingyu's fierce appearance did not have any deterrent effect on Wei Lizhou. Wei Lizhou is no stranger to seeing harsh words before a fight. Zhu Qingyu's level of ruthlessness is not even in the top 10 in his heart. Wei Lizhou said with a relaxed smile, looking for death. Are you wrong? I haven't lived enough. If I can, I even want to borrow another 500 years from the sky. I always cherish myself this little fate. Zhu Qingyu didn't expect Wei Lizhou to be in trouble, and he dared to provoke him like this. He gritted his teeth. I think you won't cry until you reach the underworld. I don't know how to write the word death. Wei Lizhou intentionally showed a funny surprised expression. Impossible, everyone is a high school student, how could I not know how to write the word death? Although my grades are not good, I am not illiterate. Zhu Qingyu, you are questioning the quality of education in our country. Yi Panbai was already quietly hiding behind the bushes not far away, poking out his eyes to watch the play silently. He originally expected to see Wei Lizhou suffer from Zhu Qingyu, but when he heard what Wei Lizhou said, he couldn't help being amused and laughed out loud. And Yuiqing, who has been silent all this time, seeing Wei Lizhou's sloppy attitude, couldn't help but feel that Wei Lizhou is really good at provoking others. Sure enough, Zhu Qingyu was so angry that his eyes almost turned red. Knowing that he could not speak well of Wei Lizhou, who was sharp-tongued, Zhu Qingyu directly winked at the dog legs around him. Take the two of them to the boys' changing room next to the playground. Students of Jiahai International School need to go to the changing room to change into the sportswear issued by the school before attending physical education class. There is a dedicated changing room next to the playground. When Yi Panbai heard Zhu Qingyu mention the changing room, he understood that they planned to clean up Wei Lizhou and Yu Yiqing there. There are only two places in the school, toilets and changing rooms, that are not monitored. If students want to fight, they usually choose these two places, so that they can largely avoid punishment from the discipline committee. Yi Panbai wondered secretly whether he should go to the Hefeng Discipline Association to report. The Disciplinary Association is a student organization of Jiahai International School, responsible for managing campus discipline and handling student affairs, and has a high voice in the school. Although Yi Panbai felt that Wei Lizhou was a bit of a jerk, he didn't want to see him being beaten black and blue. From what Zhu Qingyu saw, it was the rhythm that he would not let it go. Yi Panbai didn't notice that there were two girls in white shirts and school uniforms standing by an upstairs window not far away. On the chests of the school uniforms of the two girls, there is a silver shield medal. Under the afternoon sun, the silver medal reflected a bright and dazzling brilliance. This elegant and unique shield medal is the status symbol of the Fengjihui, and only members of the Fengjihui are eligible to wear it. The two girls stood by the window one behind the other, taking a panoramic view of Wei Lizhou and his side's every move. The short-haired girl looked at the good-looking girl with high ponytail standing in front of her, and asked respectfully, "Senior Lu, do you want someone to deal with it?" Their Fengjihui has long wanted to seize the opportunity to punish Zhu Qingyu, a group of black sheep, but unfortunately Zhu Qingyu and the others are like slippery loaches, and the Fengjihui's people are always unable to catch thieves. The girl called Senior Sister Lu is named Lu Yiru, and she is the president of the Disciplinary Association. Lu Yiru looked at Wei Lizhou, who was not far away, and said in a calm voice, "I don't need it for now, let's take a look first." If he was the one she guessed, then he should be able to deal with those trash. Hearing that Lu Yiru rejected her proposal, the short-haired girl's face flashed a look of surprise. Ednel.co After all, since Lu Yiru took control of the disciplinary committee, she did not allow such behaviors similar to campus bullying in the school. Although the short-haired girl was puzzled, out of respect for Lu Yiru, she immediately accepted the answer, quietly stood behind Lu Yiru, and watched the development of the situation there quietly with her. Zhu Qingyu felt that there were many people on his side, and it would be a piece of cake to deal with Wei Lizhou and Yu Yiqing. Thinking of Wei Lizhou's series of provocations to him just now, Zhu Qingyu looked at Wei Lizhou with a sinister smile, "Even if you cry and beg me for mercy later, I will not let you go." Seeing that Zhu Qingyu only sent two puppy legs, he wanted to hold him and Yu Yiqing and take him to the changing room by force. Wei Lizhou couldn't help laughing. Wei Lizhou kindly reminded. "Student Zhu Qingyu, why don't you go together? This way it will be easier for everyone. Don't be like squeezing toothpaste, just squeeze out a little bit, I feel tired and panic for you." Yi Panbai, who was hiding behind the bushes, couldn't help hissing. This Wei Lizhou is such a stunned young man, he dares to say such big words. Yi Panbai suddenly decided to forgive Wei Lizhou for kicking his stool this morning, and he didn't care about fools. Now Zhu Qingyu also feels that Wei Lizhou is probably really stupid, and he is simply impatient to live, so he should be dealt with severely, so that he can understand what it means to speak out. Zhu Qingyu said cheekily. "Since you ask for it yourself, then as a classmate, I have to show my friendship to you as a classmate." Wei Lizhou stretched his arm muscles, stretched his waist, and reminded Yu Yiqing. "At the same table, stay away. Don't worry, I can't do anything else, but fighting is my strength. The teachers all praised me for my excellent fighting skills in the student handbook." Yu Yiqing. Maybe he and Wei Lizhou have different definitions and understandings of boast. Zhu Qingyu didn't want to continue wasting time with Wei Lizhou here, so as not to invite people from the disciplinary association later. "Follow me. Take these two waists to the changing room." After Zhu Qingyu gave orders to his lackeys, he rushed to Wei Lizhou with them. Yi Panbai was timid, hiding behind the bushes, he couldn't help covering his eyes with his hands. The muffled sound when the fist collided with the flesh, and the ear-piercing wailing and moaning echoed instantly in the air above this square inch of land. When Yi Panbai, who had his eyes closed, heard this voice, his scalp couldn't help but tingle. However, he only heard the sound, but couldn't see the picture, which really made Yi Panbai very curious. He couldn't bear it, and couldn't help poking his head out from behind the bushes, closed his eyes, and quietly observed their situation through slightly opened fingers. Seeing the picture in front of him, Yi Panbai couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise, with an incredulous expression on his face. Wei Lizho has a narrow waist and long legs, his movements are as vigorous as a cheetah, and his kicking and punching movements are as crisp and smooth as flowing clouds and flowing water, exuding a wild and intoxicating sense of power. When he raised his legs to kick the flying man, the breeze lifted one end of his clothes, revealing a smooth and slim waistline, covered with a layer of well-proportioned and beautiful thin muscles. The expression on his face was careless, and his eyes were rarely sharp and ostentatious. At this time, Yu Yiqing's amber eyes were also deeply watching Wei Lizho. This is a Wei Lizho that he has never seen before. Perhaps because of being reborn as a teenager, Yu Yiqing's emotions seem to be turbulent and agitated for a certain moment. This 1-to-many group fight ended very quickly, and the result came out in an instant. Zhu Qingyu and his scumbags were knocked down to the ground, and howled in pain one after another. It hurts me to death. Wu, I feel like my leg is broken, please take me to the hospital quickly. I feel like I'm going to die, woohoo, I don't want to die yet. Wei Lizho. No. If it weren't for the fact that this group of people were all rich family members, he might have thought that he had met someone who touched porcelain. Before the ruthless words were loud, he thought how amazing the fighting power of this group of people was, only now did he realize that he really overestimated them. In fact, Wei Lizho's strikes were not so ruthless. After a while of pain, he was fine, and even a bruise might not be left behind. Zhu Qingyu and the others yelled like killing pigs. Apart from the fact that they were rarely beaten, there were also psychological factors to scare themselves. At this time, Yi Panbai, who was hiding in the corner, looked at Wei Lizho with admiration and reverence. He is now very glad that he did not confront Wei Lizho in the morning. Otherwise, with his powerless skill, Wei Lizho could beat him into a meatloaf. Yi Panbai suspected that even the bodyguard accompanying his father might not be able to defeat Wei Lizho. At this time, Lu Yi, a girl with short hair and soft hair, who was standing by the window also witnessed the whole process of Wei Lizho's retaliation. Lu Yiru hooked her lips in a rare way, and showed a slight smile. She turned to the short-haired girl and said, "He has good skills, and seems to be suitable for joining the disciplinary association." The short-haired girl is Lu Yiru's little fangirl. Hearing what Lu Yiru said, she immediately echoed. "Sister Lu, you are right. Sometimes we really need the help of skilled members in the work of our disciplinary association. Not long ago, the people below have expressed this need to me. Soon the discipline will recruit new students, and I will include skill in the assessment criteria." Lu Yiru nodded, and the girl with short hair quickly left the window. However, Wei Lizho and Yu Yiqing made such a big commotion, which naturally attracted the attention of many others. "Wei Lizho, what are you doing? How can you bully them like this? Look at how you beat them up." A voice of accusation suddenly sounded behind Wei Lizho. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wei Lizho was dumbfounded when he heard this accusation. Where does a fool who doesn't know right from wrong come out? Wei Lizho turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. Yu Weiyun and one of the Yan Kaichen in F4 were standing not far behind them at this moment. Yu Weiyun is usually like glue with Zhu Jinyang. But today Zhu Jinyang felt ashamed because of the bruise on his face. "So I left school and went home as early as the first class in the morning." Because of Zhu Jinyang's introduction before, although Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen are not in the same class, they are still familiar with each other. Yan Kaiken's second and fourth class of high school also happened to be a physical education class, so Yu Weiyun went to play with Yan Kaichen after the dissolution. It was also under Yan Kaiken's reminder that Yu Weiyun noticed the movement on Wei Lizhou's side. Yu Weiyun didn't want to care about this at first, but Yan Kaichen said that he was a little curious about what happened here. Yu Weiyun thought of the image of integrity and kindness she had established in front of Zhu Jinyang and Yan Kaichen, and then thought of Wei Lizhou leaving herself at the school gate and ignoring him this morning, so she came here filled with righteous indignation to fight for Zhu Qingyu's injustice. Export bad breath. Seeing Wei Lizhou staring at him in silence for a long time, Yu Weiyun inexplicably felt that he was being mocked by Wei Lizhou. He became angry from embarrassment, and accused again. Wei Lizhou, we are all classmates, why did you beat them? Because they want to beat me. Wei Lizhou was speechless. But I only saw you hitting them. Yu Weiyun's voice was indignant. Yu Weiyun's words were too ridiculous, and Wei Lizhou laughed happily. Then I can't just stand and let them fight. I must resist. If I can't beat them alone, then you can fight them when you come. I saw the picture of me being beaten. Yu Weiyun also realized that what he said before was a bit untenable, a bit of embarrassment flashed in his eyes, and then he accused. Although they pick things up first, you should accept it as soon as you see it. Look at it. What do they look like now? Although Zhu Qingyu hated Yu Weiyun, seeing Yu Weiyun helping him accuse Wei Lizhou, who was beaten to the ground, he stood up with support, and hurriedly echoed. That's right, we didn't intend to treat you how about it, I just want to make a joke with you. Do you have to deal with us like this? I've kept my hand, haven't you noticed? Wei Lizhou explained with some puzzlement. If I hadn't taken it, you people would have passed out by now. He also left them the physical strength to go to the doctor by themselves. After all, if he knocked them out, he would still have to take them to the infirmary or hospital with painstaking efforts. This is asking for trouble. Wei Lizhou felt that the people in this school were really unkind. This would be replaced by those he met before, and they must have been moved to tears by now. Wei Lizhou used to study in ordinary public schools, and no one knew his family background. And he is not a law-abiding character, so there are many boys who don't like him. The fights that Wei Lizhou has fought are simply innumerable. Although he is also very wronged, why do those people always look down on him and blame him for stealing their girlfriends and even boyfriends? In the beginning, Wei Lizhou was so angry that he was going crazy. How could he, a good young man who still kept his first kiss, be called a philanderer by this group of people? Later, after many similar experiences, Wei Lizhou chose to lie flat. Hearing that Wei Lizhou said that he had already put in his strength, Zhu Qingyu and Yu Weiyun were all choked by the words. Yu Weiyun felt that this Wei Lizhou seemed to be trying to confront him. Today, he has lost his face several times because of Wei Lizhou. Yu Weiyun seldom felt deflated, he couldn't swallow this breath in his heart, and couldn't help but wanted to win back. Yu Weiyun looked at Wei Lizhou with a look of disapproval on his face. Although I wish Qingyu and the others were wrong to provoke first, you can hand them over to the teacher instead of doing it yourself. You may not understand that you are a transfer student, but our school rules stipulate that students are not allowed to fight. If you violate the school rules, is likely to be expelled from the school. Yu Yiqing knew that Yu Weiyun wanted to use the school rules to scare Wei Lizhou who had just arrived, a trace of sarcasm flashed in his eyes. But Wei Lizhou's eyes lit up instantly. Expelled from school. There is such a good thing. He just wants to transfer schools now. He was really annoyed to death that the idiot main character was affected by Yu Weiyun. If he is treated in the same school as the protagonist again, he may have conflicts with Yu Weiyun because of his different brain circuits. Although it is said that patience will broaden the sky for a while, Wei Lizhou knows that he is not a temperament that can endure. Will you really be expelled from school? Wei Lizhou hurriedly asked Yu Weiyun excitedly. Yu Weiyun thought that Wei Lizho was frightened by his own words. His voice pretended to be soft. I just said it is possible, but the possibility is not low. After all, your behavior this time is really too much. Wei Lizho didn't care about Yu Weiyun's nonsense, he only wanted to know what he cared about the most. If the school wants to expel me, can you not contact my parents? After all, if his parents knew, they would definitely not do what he wanted. Wei Lizho thought that if he could tell his parents after his withdrawal procedures were completed, then he might be able to transfer to other schools smoothly. Yu Weiyun heard that Wei Lizho was so concerned about this topic, and felt that Wei Lizho was worried about being expelled from school. He hid the schadenfreude in his eyes very well, and patiently answered Wei Lizho's questions. Skipping out of school is a big deal. If the school wants to expel you, it must explain all this to your parents in advance. And Zhu Qingyu also thought that Wei Lizho realized the seriousness of the matter belatedly. He smiled triumphantly and said, Wei Lizho, you wait. I must let our parents complain to the school, you just wait to drop out of school and go home and cry. When Wei Lizho heard Yu Weiyun say that the school would contact his parents in advance, he suddenly felt that there was no hope of transferring to another school. After all, his parents would definitely not allow the school to expel him for such a trivial matter. Wei Lizho's excitement that surged up just now disappeared in an instant. He curled his lips and muttered in a low voice. Really, I didn't say it earlier, it made me happy for nothing. Wei Lizho said this in a very low voice, only Yu Yiqing who was standing beside him could hear what he said clearly. Yu Yiqing roughly guessed Wei Lizho's intention to transfer schools in an instant. What are you talking to yourself? Yu Weiyun, who was standing a little further away, couldn't hear Wei Lizho's words clearly, and couldn't help asking curiously. At this time, Zhu Qingyu has completely recovered the arrogant and complacent appearance just now. I don't need to ask, he must be regretting it. Wei Lizho, tell me, were you praying to God and Buddha just now, praying that you would not be expelled from school? Ah, Wei Lizho rolled his eyes directly, why do you ask so many questions? It's none of your business. Didn't you just yell that it hurts, why doesn't it hurt now, and you want to take care of so many things? Zhu Qingyu had almost forgotten about his injuries, but when Wei Lizho mentioned it, he felt a dull pain in his body. When Yu Weiyun heard Wei Lizho's words against Zhu Qingyu, he felt that Wei Lizho was still trying to be stubborn, and he must have been extremely anxious and panicked at this moment. Yu Weiyun felt that even if Wei Lizho was expelled from school, he deserved it. Who told him that he didn't know how to behave with his tail between his legs without his family background? Out of the corner of Yu Weiyun's eye, he noticed Yu Yiqing standing beside Wei Lizho. Remembering Yu Yiqing abandoning himself at the school gate in the morning, he still had some complaints about Yu Yiqing in his heart. Yu Weiyun looked at Yu Yiqing and said, Brother, you have been here just now. Why didn't you know to stop Wei Lizho? He is a new transfer student and doesn't know the school rules. If you just now stop him a little, maybe he won't make this happen. Yu Weiyun is used to kidnapping others morally. Yu Yiqing has long been used to these tricks against him. The expression on his face was so calm that there was not even a slight fluctuation. But Wei Lizho was at a loss. Yu Weiyun couldn't understand what kind of logic this was. Wei Lizho asked Yu Weiyun in shock. You mean that Yu Yiqing is also responsible for the fight between me and Zhu Qingyu? Yu Weiyun nodded affirmatively. If you are expelled from school, my brother must also bear part of the responsibility. After all, you are a transfer student, but he is already familiar with the school situation. If he knew to stop you just now, then you probably won't make a move. If it was an ordinary person, hearing Yu Weiyun say this, they might start to shirk responsibility in their hearts, or even start to blame Yu Yiqing. But Wei Lizho's reaction was completely different from Yu Weiyun's expected picture. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Wei Lizho made no secret of being speechless, and rolled his eyes at Yu Weiyun directly. What does this have to do with Yu Yiqing? I'm scolding, even if it happens again, I will definitely deal with it like this. How can I let this group of useless little ride on my head and do their best? Yu Weiyun didn't expect Wei Lizho to be so ignorant of good and bad, and to treat his kindness as a donkey's liver and lungs. He glared at Wei Lizho angrily. Why are you talking so vulgarly? It's like a dog biting Lu Dongbin, you don't know good people. Wei Lizho pursed his lips in disgust. Why don't you know good people? I think you are just eating carrots and worrying about them. And when he heard that he was called a little by Wei Lizho, Zhu Qingyu naturally refused to agree. Wei Lizho, who are you calling a bum? What a disaster. Wei Lizho curled his lips. What a disaster, didn't it just beat you up? This is still a self-defense, not a provocation. Zhu Qingyu was impatient. You, just keep your mouth shut. Later, everyone is surrounded here, why are you arguing? Zhu Qingyu's words were interrupted by a sudden majestic voice. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. It was a middle-aged man with a beer belly and a serious face. He was Luo Wenwu, the dean of the school. Yu Weiyun and others, who recognized his identity, greeted him one after another. Hi, Director Luo. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Dean Luo Wenwu put on a sullen face, walked to the middle of Wei Lizho and his group, and saw Yan Kaichen standing beside Yu Weiyun. A gentle smile instantly appeared on his face. He didn't ask the cause of the matter first, but greeted Yan Kaichen, who had been silent but had a gentle face. Director Luo smiled kindly. Student Yan Kaichen, I heard that you went to France to participate in the violin competition. How was the result of the competition? Did you win the first place again this time? The Yan family is famous for its pharmaceuticals, and the current head of the Yan family is Yan Kaiken's uncle. And Yan Kaiken's father is a well-known violinist. Yan Kaichen was also known as a violin genius since he was a child. Hearing Director Luo's question, Yan Kaichen had a gentle and elegant smile on his face, and said softly. I only got the second place, but it's pretty good. After all, I just went for fun. I can get the first place. 2 is enough. Director Luo smiled and nodded repeatedly. That's right, you are already very good. I heard from your class teacher that you plan to major in pharmaceuticals in the future, right? Yan Kaichen replied softly. Yes, I am as interested in pharmaceuticals as I am in violin. Director Luo thought about the situation of Yan's family, and nodded in agreement. It's good. After you graduate, you can also join your company to help your uncle. Yan Kaichen smiled without saying a word. Seeing that Director Luo only knew how to exchange pleasantries with Yan Kaichen, Zhu Qingyu, who was at the side, couldn't see him, so he yelled directly. Director Luo, have you talked enough with Yan Kaichen? Zhu Qingyu knew that Yan Kaichen was on Zhu Jinyang's side. So she has always had a bad look towards Yan Kaichen. When Director Luo saw that Zhu Qingyu was about to get angry, he also had some concerns, and he said, I saw you all making noise from a long distance just now, tell me, what are you doing? Now Zhu Qingyu seized the opportunity to sue. He added more details and described them as the most innocent little pitiful people in the world. They were bullied and beaten by Wei Lizho, but they dared not resist. Director Luo felt a little unbelievable when he heard it. It was not Zhu Qingyu who beat someone, but Zhu Qingyu who was beaten. Only now did Director Luo notice Wei Lizho's face. He ran through his mind quickly, and made sure he didn't find such a recognizable face among the children of the upper-class circles in Haicheng. Director Luo looked at Wei Lizho. Are you a new transfer student? Before Wei Lizho could answer, Zhu Qingyu rushed to answer, what kind of transfer student, isn't he just a social helper? Zhu Qingyu looked at Director Luo and said threateningly, I don't care, he must be expelled from school today anyway. Otherwise, the rest of us will have our parents come to the school to talk to you. When Zhu Qingyu said this, the dog legs behind him also echoed. Yes. I want my mother to come to the school to complain. When Director Luo heard what they said, He also felt that one thing more is worse than one thing less. Anyway, he is just a student of social assistance, so he might as well follow their wishes. However, he still has to do a little work. He asked Yan Kaichen and Yu Weiyun. Have you two students seen what happened just now? Yu Weiyun frowned, looking very embarrassed. When I came just now, I saw Zhu Qingyu and the others were beaten and lying on the ground, and Wei Lizhou also admitted that he was the one who beat them. However, he said it was Zhu Qingyu and the others who provoked him first. Director Luo immediately lowered his face. No matter what, you can't hit your classmates. We Jiahai do not allow such bad behaviors as campus fights to appear on campus. Director Luo looked at Yan Kaichen. Student Yan, what about you, did you see anything just now? Yan Kaichen said in a gentle voice. I am also similar to Yu Weiyun. When I came, except for this classmate Wei Lizhou and Yu Yiqing, Zhu Qingyu and the others were beaten with black noses and swollen faces. As Yan Kaichen spoke, his voice hesitated. But I didn't see who did it, so I can only say that maybe both of them are suspected. Hearing what Yan Kaichen said, Zhu Qingyu's eyes lit up, and suddenly he changed his words hastily. Director Luo, this Yu Yiqing also made a move. It was the two of them who did it together. Wei Lizhou frowned, and raised his voice to Yan Kaichen in dissatisfaction. Hey, what's the matter with you, can you talk? It seems that Yu Yiqing is also suspected. Yan Kaichen frowned slightly. I'm just talking about the facts I've seen. Yu Yiqing was used to Yan Kaichen's reaction. After all, he felt Yan Kaichen's strong malice towards him in his last life. Perhaps because Yu Weiyun hated him, Yan Kaichen, who had a crush on Yu Weiyun, also targeted him everywhere. By the way, Yan Kaichen's target is not the kind of direct confrontation that is put on the bright side, but likes to hide the needle in the cotton like this, and speak with honey. Yu Yiqing's voice was cold. There are surveillance cameras installed by the school here. Whether I have done anything or not can be seen at a glance just by looking at the surveillance cameras. Director Luo also knew that Yu Yiqing, a student, had very good grades. The reason why the school is willing to make an exception to recruit him in the second year of high school is to hope that he can win the school's honor in the college entrance examination next year. So naturally he couldn't just force the students who are valued by this school to drop out. Director Luo came to the conclusion. Since student Yu Yiqing said that, it proves that he really has a clear conscience. Zhu Qingyu, don't talk about innocent people everywhere. As soon as Director Luo finished speaking, Wei Lizhou glanced at Yan Kaichen, and said in a strange way. Director Luo is right. I think Yu Yiqing is suspected, he must be blind. While talking, Wei Lizhou patted Yu Yiqing's shoulder with his hands. I don't even open my eyes to look at Yu Yiqing, who has thin arms and legs. Even if he wants to fight, can he beat others? Such a small body, isn't it good to catch up with? Do you want to deliver food to someone? Hearing Wei Lizhou's cynicism, the gentle smile on Yan Kaichen's face immediately faded a little, and a little coldness appeared in his eyes. And Yu Yiqing, who was protected by Wei Lizhou, raised his hand and put Wei Lizhou's hand on his shoulder affectionately, and scratched Wei Lizhou with cold eyes. What do you mean by thinning arms and thinning legs, and delivering food to people? If Wei Lizhou can't speak, he can shut up. After receiving Yu Yiqing's slap in the face, Wei Lizhou smiled flatteringly. What he just said was indeed a bit exaggerated. But Yu Yiqing is indeed very thin. Even Yu Weiyun, the younger brother, has a rosy face every day, and looks much healthier than him. Zhu Qingyu wanted to drive both Wei Lizhou and Yu Yiqing out of the school at once, but he had to rest his mind when he heard what they said, but he still said indignantly. Director Luo, you have to make decisions for us. Although Yu Yiqing he didn't do anything, but that Wei Lizhou did hit us. Director Luo waved his hand. Okay, you people on both sides of the trouble, come to the office with me. Don't stand here and cause trouble to other students. After Director Luo finished speaking, he looked at Yan Kaichen again. Student Yan Kaichen, you and the other student Yu Weiyun, just go about your own business. Don't waste your time here because of this matter. Yu Weiyun was about to say yes, when she heard Yan Kaichen say. Director, let's go and have a look. We can be regarded as half-witnesses, so we might be able to help you if we go and have a look. When Director Luo heard what Yan Kaichen said, he couldn't refuse him naturally. Yi Panbai, the little fat guy who had been hiding behind the bushes not far away and eating melons, felt itchy when he saw that they were about to go to the office. Yi Panbai told himself that he was not worried about that Wei Lizho. He is defending his dignity as a melon eater. Since you eat melons, you have to eat the melons to be considered complete. Seeing that they were going far away, Yi Panbai hurriedly jumped out from behind the bushes and shouted. Director Luo, I have been here just now. I came earlier than Yu Weiyun and Yan Kaichen. I am also a witness. Well, I'm going to go to the office with you too. Director Luo. What happened to these students now? One or two are rushing to be witnesses, and they have thought about being detectives, so they come to help solve the case, right? Director Luo was helpless, but seeing that it was Yi Panbai and remembering that he was from the Yi family, he had no choice but to let him follow by default. Yi Panbai couldn't help but ran to Wei Lizhou's side in a panic. Wei Lizhou glanced at him angrily. It looked like he was here to make trouble, and planned to collude with Zhu Qingyu and those bastards. Seeing that Wei Lizhou ignored him, Yi Panbai wanted to provoke him more. Yi Panbaigao raised his chin, gloating on his face. Oh, you have caused trouble. If you beg me seriously, I might consider interceding for you. Wei Lizhou sneered directly with disdain. There is no need for you to pretend to be kind here. If you don't add fuel and jealousy, I'm already going to snicker. How can I point you to beg for mercy? Yi Panbai became angry when he heard that. Wei Lizhou actually thought of him so badly. Wei Lizhou hooked the corners of his lips in a dazed manner. What's the matter? I've been caught by what I said, and you're so guilty that you can't even speak. Yi Panbai gave a heavy hum. You're stubborn, don't beg me later. If I'm soft-hearted, I'll write the word Yi upside down. Wei Lizhou looked indifferent. Don't worry, no one will be able to ask you for it anyway. Yu Yiqing was speechless when he heard the quarrel between the two of them at the elementary school level. And the word Yi is written upside down, isn't it still the word Yi? Yi Panbai's vow is quite unique. Director Luo didn't expect that this transfer student named Wei Lizhou was already in dire straits, and he still wanted to argue with others. He turned back impatiently and said, Okay, be quiet, and you will have a chance to talk when you get to the office later. Wei Lizhou curled his lips. Director Luo looked fair, but he felt like a Philistine everywhere. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wei Lizhou and his team soon arrived at Director Luo's office. Zhu Qingyu showed Wei Lizhou a crazy smile. Wei Lizhou, let me tell you, you are going to die soon. You were expelled on the first day of transfer, you are really unforgettable. Zhu Qingyu stood in front of the desk and said to Director Luo, who was sitting behind the desk. Director, my mother has received the news just now, and she is on her way to school now. Zhu Qingyu's henchman also echoed, my dad is on his way too. My grandpa is coming too. The reason why the five of Zhu Qingyu and the others were so quiet on the way here was that they were busy calling their elders to come over to support them, in order to put pressure on Director Luo. Director Luo felt a headache when he heard Zhu Qingyu say that his little third mother was coming. After all, even though his mother Lu Jing was a mistress in the past, she had already killed her original partner 2 years ago. The women that Zhufu has been with him for the past 2 years are all her. Except that Zhu Qingyu's third mother has not officially married into Zhu's family, the rest of her treatment is already considered as the mistress of Zhu's family. Hearing what Zhu Qingyu and the others said, Yi Panbai, who said he was here to eat melons, couldn't help but look at Wei Lizhou worriedly out of the corner of his eye. Zhu Qingyu's mother is not easy to mess with, she is notoriously domineering and unreasonable. Wei Lizho heard that this was what they were messing around with along the way, so he twitched the corners of his lips at Zhu Qingyu and the others in disdain. It's really useless, I know I can't fight and call the parents. When I fought in kindergarten, I never met such a coward like you of. Zhu Qingyu was not ashamed, and proudly said to Wei Lizho. You have no one to back you up, that's why you speak so sourly. Wei Lizho chuckled a few times with disdain. It's as if someone has no elders in their family, isn't it just calling the parents? Just wait, I'll call someone over now. Wei Lizho took out his mobile phone and dialed his father's number directly. As soon as the call was connected, Wei Lizho's first words were, Dad, come to the school's dean's office quickly. If you don't come, your son and you will be bullied to death. When Zhu Qingyu heard what Wei Lizho said, he couldn't help complaining. Who is bullying whom? We were beaten by you just now. How dare you say that we bullied you? Wei Lizho didn't care that he was still on the phone with his father, and directly said to Zhu Qingyu. Aren't you inferior in skills, do you deserve to be beaten? Why did I bully you? If I were you, you would be beaten every 5 times. After a counterattack, I just dug a hole and buried myself, so I don't have the face to beat me up. Although Zhu Qingyu knew in his heart that their matter was really embarrassing, but he couldn't swallow the pain of being beaten, so he directly said harshly. Just wait, when my mother comes, you will be the one to look good. Zhu Qingyu's voice was not low, and Wei's father heard it clearly on the other end of the phone. He immediately sorted out the general context of the matter, and said directly to Wei Lizho. You wait for me too, your father and I are now just go. Their old Wei family can't suffer from anything they eat. After receiving his father's reply, Wei Lizho hung up the phone very quickly. Director Luo also said at this time. Since both of you have already called your parents over, it saves me the trouble of calling to notify. Before your parents come, I will watch the surveillance video at that time. As Director Luo spoke, he called up the surveillance screen just now from the computer on his desk. Jiahai International School is equipped with high-definition surveillance cameras, and he quickly learned the whole story clearly. Director Luo intends to cut through the mess quickly and deal with this matter quickly. He cleared his throat twice, and when he saw that everyone was looking at him, he opened his mouth and said to Wei Lizho, Student Wei Lizho. Although Zhu Qingyu and the others provoked you first, your behavior has gone too far. When you see something like this, what you should do is to report it to the teacher immediately instead of solving the matter yourself. In my opinion, your behavior should be expelled from school. Wei Lizho didn't question whether the punishment he received was reasonable, but instead asked. Since I dropped out of school, what is the result of the punishment for them? Director Luo frowned, and said seriously. Since they have already been beaten up by you, then they have been taught a lesson, and the punishment is fine. Director Luo was worried that if he dealt with Zhu Qingyu and the others, he would not only offend their family. And the few of them may also make trouble for themselves. When Wei Lizho heard Director Luo's words, he immediately laughed angrily. He curled his lips mockingly, his voice contemptuous. It's all my fault for company authoring, right? Before they were attacked by me, they kept saying that they would teach me and you Yiqing a lesson. If it weren't for my ability to resist, Director Luo, who is wise and mighty, would you think they would be beaten up now? Who would it be? Director Luo couldn't answer Wei Lizho's question, and he became angry from embarrassment. Wei Lizho, don't be so unreasonable here. Yu Wei Yun also suddenly said at this time. Yes, Wei Lizho, your behavior has indeed violated the school rules, and Director Luo is also acting according to the rules. Seeing Director Luo's expression of agreement, nodding his head in agreement with his own words, Yu Weiyun seemed to have obtained some kind of Shangfang sword, and he became more confident in criticizing Wei Lizho. Wei Lizho, you are just making things difficult for Director Luo by pestering you like this. Make it difficult for him. If it is to be dealt with according to the school regulations, it should not be the result of this treatment. Yu Yiqing suddenly interrupted Yu Weiyun in a cold voice. Against the eyes of everyone who suddenly looked over, he said with a cold expression and decisively. According to Item 4 of Article 17 of the School Regulations and Discipline Implementation Rules, those who take legitimate defenses in the face of attacks and cause minor injuries to others will be given warning or above punishment. The maximum is only to stay in school for probation. Only those who cause moderate harm to others will be given the maximum punishment of expulsion from school. Yui glanced at Zhu Qingyu and the others, with some sarcasm in his voice. Just looking at the current appearance of these people, I'm afraid it would be a little bit reluctant to say that they were slightly injured. Yui Qing's words directly stunned everyone. No one thought that he had memorized such boring things as school rules, and he could even be called familiar with them by heart. Yui Qing looked at Yu Weiyun again. Just now you kept saying that Director Luo was acting according to the rules. But if it is really in accordance with Article 9 of the School Regulations and Discipline Implementation Rules, those who premeditate and plan to fight should be punished with a major demerit or above, up to expulsion. Yui Qing's words directly silenced Director Luo, Yu Weiyun and others. Wei Lizho stiffened instantly. He raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile, Director Luo, why do I remember how you handled it just now? It seems to be a bit different from this school rule. Wei Lizho looked at Director Luo mockingly. As a dean, is it possible that you have misremembered the school rules and regulations? Can't you? Or, you want to bully me, a transfer student, and you don't understand the specific regulations of the school rules? Director Luo's face turned red when asked. And Yu Weiyun, who had been talking about the school rules just now, is also hot and red now, feeling extremely ashamed. Who hit my son? A shrill female voice suddenly came into the office from outside. The woman who spoke suddenly pushed open the office door and walked in aggressively. The woman has a pretty face and a graceful figure. She wears luxury brands all over her body, and all kinds of jewelry are extremely conspicuous, and her whole body exudes an aura of jewels. Zhu Qingyu, who Yui Qing said to be listless just now, became excited instantly. Mom, I'm here, why did you come here? Lu Jing heard her son's aggrieved voice, and hurried to his side. Seeing Zhu Qingyu's face, she immediately exclaimed. My darling son, why are your eyes black and blue like this? Which beat you? You tell Mom must let him eat and walk around. Zhu Qingyu didn't expect which pot his mother wouldn't open and which pot to carry. The reason why his eyes were black and blue was because he had a fight with Zhu Jinyang in the morning. Zhu Qingyu hastily pulled his mother over, and explained in a low voice. I had a fight with Zhu Jinyang this morning, and he beat me. Hearing that it was Zhu Jinyang, and thinking that Zhu Jinyang was protected by the old man of the Zhu family, Lu Jing had no choice but to calm down and change the subject. Didn't you just say that someone beat you? Where did he hurt you? Why doesn't Mom seem to see anything? Zhu Qingyu. He didn't know how to explain it to his mother. Because Wei Lizho really didn't leave any scars on him, it's just a pain for a while. Zhu Qingyu prevaricated. Okay, Mom, don't ask so many questions. Anyway, I have suffered a big loss from your son today. Lu Jing was annoyed when she heard this. She looked at Director Luo, and asked aggressively. Director Luo, what's going on with your school? We pay such expensive tuition every year, and you let people bully my son like this ah? Zhu Qingyu waved the flag to cheer by the side, and ignited the flames. Mom, the person who bullied me is still a social supporter who has not paid the tuition fee. Wei Lizho was at a loss. When did he not pay the tuition fee? He even took a look at the tuition receipt. What is Zhu Qingyu talking about? When Lu Jing heard that she was a social supporter, she became even more arrogant. She directly scolded Director Luo. Oh, your school is really blind. Now you are picking up all the stinky and dirty things in the school, and you are not afraid that the school will not survive in the future, right? If you want me to say, you should drive out these social aid students, and don't look at their status, how can they be qualified to study here? Lu Jing scolded all the social support students indiscriminately. Yui Qing's eyes remained calm, and he didn't even glance at Lu Jing. He never cared about what idiots said. After all, in terms of identity, Lu Jing is still just a mistress, and her precious son is still an illegitimate child. But Yu Weiyun couldn't be so calm. His face flushed even more in an instant, and he felt as if his face was being dragged to the ground and trampled at will. But he didn't dare to refute Lu Jing's words. After all, Lu Jing was aggressive at first sight, and now Zhu Jinyang was not by his side to protect him. So he had to resent in his heart alone. When Director Luo heard what Lu Jing said, he hurriedly said, "Ms. Lu, please calm down first." Lu Jing glared angrily. Calm down, my son is being beaten now, you have to give me a reasonable explanation, otherwise I won't just let it go." At this time, the elders of Zhu Qingyu's dog-legged family also came to the office one after another. They didn't even ask about what happened, they just stood by Lu Jing's side and echoed, "Yes, we have to explain this to our family." Director Luo appeased Lu Jing and his group. "I have already dealt with this matter just now. The student who beat up your children will be expelled from our school." Only now did Lu Jing feel relieved, it's not too bad. Hearing Director Luo and Lu Jing's conversation, Yi Panbai pursed his lips. This way of handling Wei Lizho was not fair at all. Yi Panbai, who couldn't stand it, was about to speak for Wei Lizho, when suddenly there was another knock on the door in Kukuku's office.